So I'll just start by saying hello and welcome to everybody who attended today. This is the second in our Modern Construction 101 webinar series, where we're taking a deep dive into familiar challenges and presenting innovative solutions. Today, we're going to be exploring how to create the perfect startup checklist. And so during this session, if you have any questions, we'd like to create an open dialogue. Please raise your hand or type a question into the chat, and we can take a little bit of a look into what you're thinking about creating the perfect startup checklist. Our host today is Alfredo Hermano. He's an industry veteran and the CEO of Rambutan. So I'll leave you in his capable hands and we'll start going. You, Alfredo.
Hey, perfect. Thank you very much, Selena. So just for today, I'm really excited again to do, this is our second seminar of our Modern Construction 101 series, and really excited again to share with everybody our close to 20 years of experience in various areas in construction and real estate. Just for a background for those who are attending, my name is Alfredo Hermano. I'm the CEO of Rambutan, as well as other companies, including 3H Properties, NGC Constructors, Fresh Strategies, and just to name a few. I started my first business while I was in college, undertaking my construction management degree. Prior to that, I had completed a diploma in architectural technology. And as for our construction and real estate experience, we've been in all facets, including commercial, residential, multifamily, hotel resort, and open up offices in Vancouver, where our head office is, Toronto, Washington State, USA, and Texas, USA as well. Some of our past and current clients include Cineplex, Marcus, Regal, H&R Block, Intrawest, Joey, BC Ferries, just to name a few. And why entrepreneurship? First off, there's always been a desire, not only in Rambutan, but all our various businesses, to change the construction industry for the better. That's always been our vision. It's consistent amongst several on all of our businesses. And then number two, and this is a really big aspect of why I got into entrepreneurship, is that there's a significantly greater long-term potential in developing a business versus trading hours for dollars. And so that's always been my personal interest. And then last but not least, innovation and improvement has been part of what we're doing, and that's particularly what we'll be talking about today with Rambutan. And it's definitely part of our culture and values. And so, today we'll be talking about our startup checklist, which we think is pretty cool and pretty innovative. So if you can jump to the next slide, please. So what's on our agenda today? Why Rambutan wants to help is our first section. Section 2, what should a startup checklist accomplish? Section 3, 3 ways to establish effective communication. 4, consolidating resources. 5, staying on schedule. 6, checklist template review. 7, tools and summary. And then 8, Q&A. So why Rambutan wants to help? Our goal is to change the industry for the better. What is Rambutan? It's an online team buying procurement marketplace and tech-forward services for your next construction renovation project. The idea, though, behind Rambutan is that it was intended to help small businesses obtain the discounts and pricing that large companies often get to help their buying power. So that's our goal long-term, and we continue to make our efforts towards that today. And one of the other reasons is that, we always believe that there's a way for the industry together to collaborate and work together to improve. And so I always like to say this saying, rising tide lifts all boats. And another one that is also really cool is, alone you can run fast, but together you can run far. So that's kind of our belief when it comes to Rambutan and our approach to trying to help the overall industry improve. Next slide, please. So section 2, what should your startup checklist accomplish? Take control of your projects with careful planning. Construction is full of changes. setbacks, risks, rewards. However, there are many pitfalls that can be avoided with proper planning and management. What are the goals of an effective startup checklist? Number one is to establish effective communication between all parties. Number two, create and consolidate practical resources. And number three, keep your schedule on track. So how to build a startup checklist that works for you. What you don't want to do is don't expect every project to be the same. Don't overload on action items and don't leave tasks unassigned. What you do want to do is think about the specific needs of your client, prioritize establishing processes, break down your tasks into categories and among your team. Next slide, please. An ideal startup checklist can set the right tone for the rest of your project, can instill confidence in your team, trades, and clients, can align expectations, can save time and energy, can create reliable and efficient processes, and last but not least, it can focus your energy on challenges instead of administration. And this is an important key point for me in that if you make a checklist too detailed, too many pages, too descriptive, it almost at some point defeats the purpose of creating a simple and easy, reliable checklist, because then you get it becomes a bit daunting in how you undertake completing that checklist. And sometimes, in fact, you actually avoid the process of utilizing that checklist. When you do keep the checklist simple, you keep it to as few pages as possible. In our business, we try to keep our checklists per category or per section or per topic under one page. And if you can do that, it makes things so much easier. You can see it all on one page and makes the process a lot more effective and useful to running your business. Yeah, next page. Section 2, 3 ways to establish effective communication. Tips for how to streamline delegation. Effective communication is a foundation of any great team, but sometimes can get lost in all documents, details, and delays that come with every project. Next slide. Align expectations. What you want to be specific. You want to assign tasks to team members. Everyone should know who is responsible for what. Set an expected end date, including milestones if needed. And when in doubt, under promise and over deliver. That's a really important approach in business, is that set your expectations clear with all the parties that are involved, and if you can over deliver on your tasks, that always is a great way to leave a lasting impression. Next page, please. Use the appropriate channels. Find the right tools for your team and stick to them. Use email to communicate, summarize, and confirm important details and ideas like schedule and cost changes, not back and forth conversations. As we know today, email is quite a useful tool, but can also be a daunting tool to most of us, given that it doesn't have a specific time that when these emails and such come in. So if you can reduce the amount of email exchanges, I think that would make your business a lot more effective, and as well be in line with making things more streamlined and efficient, like the startup checklist. Don't hold meetings without a clear goal or agenda in mind. It's always important prior to holding a meeting that you have an agenda set up so that you can make some decisions at the meeting, rather than just having long discussions during the meeting, which often result in wasted time and energy. Next slide, please. Confirm understanding. Always ask and make space for questions. Proactively schedule quick follow-ups or check-ins. Encourage feedback and respond to it positively. We can always respond to things negatively. I don't think that helps much, especially in challenging situations. What you want to do is try to find solutions that help you achieve what you're trying to achieve. Next slide, please. Section 4, consolidating resources, how to save time and get your team on the same page. We've all spent too long hunting down documents, emails, and links, but with proper planning and strong backend technology, all you need should be at your fingertips in seconds. That's been a big belief of mine, and in terms of running a business. Your documentation and backend systems are really critical to your operations, especially in these days where technology is at our fingertips. It makes things a lot more efficient. But in terms of your documentation, if you can make sure that it's well organized and managed and kept up to date, so that you can obtain the things that you need within a short period of time, that helps alleviate any administrative aspects to your business and helps you focus on what's important, which is really thinking through challenges, strategizing, planning, etc. Next slide, please. What do I need for every project? Well, there's some key things such as contact details of our parties, trades, client, and your team, up-to-date insurance for protection of potential risks and operation of your business and projects, permits and licenses, site information, delivery power, etc., safety plans, in particular these days with COVID impacting not only the construction business, but every business in construction. That's one thing we want to do, is make sure that everybody's safe and takes proper precautions. So having proper plans in place, particularly with COVID being in the environment, it's good for being proper planning and efficiency. Number 6, client documents, drawings, contract, warranty, etc. Creating clear guides, processes will save you time on every startup. Next slide, please. So what you want to do is create systems, procedures, and resources to save time on recurring tasks, such as using templates for emails, meeting requests, travel requests, etc. That's very helpful in terms of the administrative side of your business. Create detailed training materials and update your documents regularly. It's really important to update your documents because your team will then always have the most current documentation for their use. It's really important to us when we have offices in various areas, and particularly with how COVID has created this remote operating structure. And so your team always knows what information they can have at hand, and it being current makes things even more efficient. Next slide, please. Most importantly, create a clear, consistent storage system and processes. Make sure everyone knows where and how to find documents they need. We're repeating this point again because it's really important to, again, the administration and operation of your business, and it's an important check mark in our startup checklist. Next slide, please. Section 5, staying on schedule. The easiest way to avoid a delay is to plan for it ahead of time, if you can. There are so many aspects of a project that can push back your completion date, so we've gathered some tips to get help predict and manage your long lead items proactively. Identifying long lead items. Use your experience to be proactive in considering variables that can lead to delays. So these are 3 key aspects to long lead items that we look at. What traits for under people? What traits or values of your client, trades, or team have? So some things you want to consider when looking at long lead items as it relates to scheduling and your people is vacations and holidays. When are key people taking vacations and holidays in your schedule? So you want to consider that and plan for that. Number 2, place. Does this location have any challenges? So again, when looking at long lead items, for example, undertaking work in northern communities where it's quite remote, where a Home Depot is within 2 to 4 hours travel time, you want to plan exactly what your supplies and your resources are that are needed to undertake that project, so you don't lose any time. And number 3, problems. Are there existing roadblocks that can affect your schedule? So today with COVID, there's been a big impact on logistics and supplies, and particularly in North America, with the border closed from the U.S. to Canadian, logistics have impacted our supplies, and we've seen some significant increases in cost, particularly with lumber and other construction materials. And so if you can plan for that, in some cases it's very difficult to plan for, but when it's in place, if you can plan for that and adjust your schedule and adjust your strategies accordingly, that'll definitely help alleviate some of the future burdens and challenges that can come up in a project. Next slide, please. So managing long lead items, what you want to do is update your schedule as needed. You want to communicate expected delays to client, and some delays are inevitable even with careful planning. That's just a reality that we face in our business. And if you can somehow ensure that that you account for that and you adjust yourself and your team accordingly, it'll make things a lot easier. Section 6, startup checklist template review. So we use this template as needed to help organize your next project. So jump to the checklist. So this is our checklist for Rambutan startup checklist template. And so as you can see here, and we'll be sharing this document with you, and Selena can go over that in a few moments. It's broken up into 3 sections. As at the top was the administrative section. Then you have in the middle section is a project management section. And then at the bottom, you have your site superintendent, site related section. And so most people who have checklists, there's key important typical items, like under the administration would be filing of folders and filing digital folders and logs being created, drawings and specifications being filed, having a current schedule in your directories. Under project management, we talked about this already, determining your long lead items, your letters of intent, signed contracts and purchase orders. Those are pretty typical to have in your startup checklist. Under the superintendent section, such things as having your building permit on site, business license on site, having your site office, first aid office, site washrooms. Those are really sort of just the typical items that you can see in a checklist. What's atypical, what's more specialized under our checklist are items that we have included in the project management section. We have an item that covers the commitment creation. And that was a custom profit guide that we talked about in seminar 1. That's one thing that we do that's important at the start of the project. Number 2, in terms of updates, we provide a pretty extensive weekly and monthly update. We only do the monthly updates if the projects are much longer. On the shorter projects, we do as sort of part of our standard, where we provide the client with a weekly update that includes some of the events that have taken place over the past week. We show pictures, we have status update, challenges update, and then a 2-week look ahead. What's also really cool about our checklist is that under this monthly update section in the project management section, we have follow up with the client to review the status at 50%. We kind of create a plan around this 50% item, where at the start of the project, we determine what you need to achieve when you're at 50% completion. And so if you're at 50% completion and you're sitting down with the client and you're seeing that, oh, your tasks are only 40% complete, you've only received a certain amount of material, well, your project is going to track to not completing on time. So what you want to do are make adjustments. So that's a really important trigger date for us on our larger projects, which we like to put this kind of system in place. Another thing that you want to spend extra time reviewing, which is really important that I see, is your master contact list under the administrative section. That's really important because what you want to do, if you can scroll up, Selena. It's also in the site superintendent section. You're actually correct. But you definitely, where it starts with your administrative checks and its administrative team, they can put together an extensive contact list that allows for proper communication between all parties and circulate that. Under the project management section, one of the important things to start to do when you start a project is to ensure that you've met with a client and you talked about the exclusions. That's something that is always really important, as well as talking about how do you address extras and what kind of fees do you charge for these extras. And then what's also important, and these are just basic aspects, but really key that you do cover at the very beginning of a project, includes, particularly with meeting a new client or dealing with a new client, is including and discussing payment terms and the schedule related to that. Another key important aspect to our startup checklist are meetings. If we go scroll down to the bottom, we have meetings such as a handover meeting with our project manager, accounting team, estimating team, site team, just at the very beginning of a project. And then you also, after that, you schedule recurring meetings. At the beginning of a project, you might want to get the project going and gain some momentum. You probably want to schedule weekly meetings. As a project gains some momentum and starts feeling a lot smoother, you probably want to increase that to either bi-weekly or monthly meetings. And then as a project closes, we can talk about that, and we'll probably talk about that in another seminar, is to increase your meeting frequency back to probably weekly meetings, if not more, if you need them. What's also important are scheduling initial meetings with your client and consultants, and again, as well, scheduling recurring meetings to that effect. And you probably want to schedule those meetings after you've met with your team on your regular weekly team meetings. And then you want to have at the bottom is to conduct a initial site meeting with your trades and your suppliers and discuss the logistics of the site, go over the site safety protocols, go over the fire safety plan, go over the logistic, go over who the contacts are, do introductions, talk a little bit about your milestones in your schedule and perhaps some initial challenges, and then schedule a recurring meeting as well. Then the last thing I want to talk about when it comes to our startup template and startup checklist is that we don't actually use check marks for completing this checklist. What we like to do in order to create a great tracking system is the person who initially starts with completing the checklist, which is either our project coordinator or project administrator under the administrative side of this checklist. We have them initial these boxes. And then once they have completed their section, they pass that along to the project manager or the site superintendent, whoever they feel is next in line. And what happens then is then the project manager, site superintendent also initial their boxes. And so when you're reviewing this checklist at a later date, you will see who undertook what task, and then you can go to them and find out what the status of those tasks are, or if there's any challenges or issues that come up related to that task, they can be the accountable person who reports what the status or the issues that surround that task. So that's pretty much from a high level our startup checklist, and we'll be sharing this with those who attended today. Thank you very much for that, Selena. So we'll talk a little bit about it in summary today, section 7, summary and tools from today's lesson. Our goal was to provide value to your business. We hope we did that, and we hope you also enjoyed today. And next, what does effective communication look like? We want to align expectations, use the appropriate channels, confirm understanding, and experience is your greatest asset. Creating useful resources, determining long lead items, And when I talk about experience, that's not only experience that you have, but that's the experience of your team members and those that are resources to you, and other stakeholders. You can utilize those experiences, and when the time comes that you need to undertake some significant challenges or just in your day-to-day operations. Tools for your next project from today's workshop. One, you're going to get a free startup checklist template, basically the one that we provided for your use, so that you can either customize it and see how that can help you in your business when you start up projects and make them a lot more efficient. You'll get a full session recording available and live answers to your questions. Get ready. And with that, I'm going to hand it back to Selena.
Perfect. Thanks, Alfredo. Great tips on how to make your startup checklist kind of more than a document and sort of just a tone set for your whole project. Love to hear it. And I hope that you guys enjoyed what you learned here today as well. We have lots more upcoming workshops, kind of some tips and tricks to help you get through the rest of the pandemic and onto recovery, including meeting tips and tricks with Google Docs, mastering new trends in remote work for teams, creating an airtight profit sharing guide. And of course, if you have any suggestions for topics, we would definitely be open to creating webinars surrounding what interests you the most. So you can email us your questions, comments, and suggestions anytime at hello@rambutan.co. All right. And I know we're coming up to time here, so if you have to run, no worries. There will be a full session recording sent to you after our workshop today. But in case you want to stick around and have any questions, we will be going into the Q&A period to have Alfredo answer your questions. But if you want to ask a question, you can either raise your hand or you can type your question into the chat and I'll take you off mute and you can ask it live. Okay. Don't be shy. Okay, we have one chat question. The first question is, who does your startup checklist get distributed to? And should people outside of your team see your checklist?
That's a really good question, actually. I'm a very transparent person in how I operate our business, and I encourage our team to be like that. So particularly from our approach, I have no problem sharing our completed or uncompleted checklists with all stakeholders in our project. And so I don't believe that there's any significant problems to doing that. I think if you did have some specific internal notes that were more confidential related to profits and such and how you operate, I think that would be left out of the checklist, but I don't think there's any, there's a big problem in sharing it.
Awesome. We'll see if we can get one more question in just before time here. Okay. What do you do if you discover you have a huge roadblock right at the beginning of your startup?
That often happens, and that might be related to your building permit or anything that is a milestone in the start of a project. And so, in our experience, there's been a pulling your team together to figure out how to undertake a challenge, I think is the best way to do that. Come up with a plan, determine what your various options are. You can look at, in this scenario one, if we chose this direction, this is what would happen. Scenario 2, scenario 3, and circulate that and see what makes most sense from your team perspective. And then you probably want to sit down with the other key stakeholders, such as your client, and go over what you propose, and then you can have a discussion on what the next steps would be.
Perfect. And we have a question from TJ here. What project management software would you recommend? I feel like we could do a whole session just on this one.
Yeah, there's a ton of different project management softwares that include, on the accounting side, ones that include, site specific. There's those that are specifically related to scheduling. I think it depends on the scope and scale of the size of the projects that you undertake. With more simple projects, single family residential project, you don't want to use a large, heavy enterprise software like Procore, but maybe a builder trend might be more specific to that kind of project. We use MS Project for scheduling. There's also other scheduling softwares that are software that's out there that are a little more extensive. There's also, Timberline is another extensive accounting enterprise program. And so again, it just really depends on the scope and scale of the type of projects that you undertake and what software makes most sense, so that it's not too daunting or too extensive for your use, so that you can focus on running your projects rather than the administration of your projects.
Awesome. And yeah, to that point, I'd add there are a lot of options out there. So never be afraid to do as many free trials as you can, or ask customer service to extend your trial if you're not sure. But yeah, that's a topic I'm sure we'd love to explore a little further one day. So I want to thank you guys for coming to this session. You will receive a follow-up email containing some of the things we talked about, including a document template, the full session recording as well. If you have any questions or concerns, you can email us at hello@rambutan.co or give us a call at our 1-800 number. We're always here to help, and we want to make sure that we're providing value to your business. So drop us a line, and we hope to see you next time. Thanks so much.
Thank you very much.
Bye.